Sometimes the most painful lies are not the ones told to us by others, but the ones we repeat quietly to ourselves. You tell yourself they didn't mean it. You say they're just busy. You convince your heart, maybe I'm expecting too much. But deep down, you already know. Allah did not give you intuition to ignore it. He gave it to protect you. Today, we are not talking about hatred, revenge, or cutting people off without wisdom. We are talking about awareness, because Islam does not teach us to be naive. It teaches us to be kind with clarity. If someone is only using you, they will reveal themselves, not once, not loudly, but consistently. And if you are honest with yourself, the signs were always there. Ask yourself this with sincerity, not defensiveness, not excuses, not fear of being wrong. When do they reach out to you? Look at the pattern, not the isolated moment. Anyone can send a kind message once. Anyone can check in occasionally. Patterns reveal intention. Patterns don't lie. Do they reach out when you are quiet and withdrawn, when your energy is low, when your heart is heavy? Or do they suddenly remember you when a problem appears in their life, when something is missing, when they need a solution they don't want to work for themselves? You already know the answer. You just don't like what it implies. There is a difference between someone who includes you in their life and someone who contacts you only when their life requires something from you. One sees you as a person, the other sees you as a function. Notice how the conversation begins. It rarely starts with genuine concern. It starts with small talk that quickly moves toward a request. Sometimes the request is obvious, sometimes it's disguised. Advice, emotional reassurance, money, time, access, validation, a favor wrapped in friendliness. And you give it because you are kind, because you don't want to be difficult, because you believe helping people is rewarded by Allah, and it is. But here is where honesty matters. Helping does not mean allowing yourself to be used repeatedly without awareness. Once their need is fulfilled, something subtle but consistent happens. The warmth fades, the effort disappears, replies become slower, conversations shorten, plans dissolve. You don't hear from them again until the next need appears. This is not coincidence, this is rhythm. Islam teaches us balance in all relationships. A believer does not consume without contributing. The Prophet, peace be upon him, showed us through his character that relationships are built on mutual care, not one-sided extraction. When someone consistently benefits from your presence but shows little interest in your well-being, that is not brotherhood, that is not sisterhood, that is usage. Let's be very clear here, because many people confuse kindness with self-erasure. Buying generous does not mean being blind. Buying patient does not mean being passive. Being forgiving does not mean being exploitable. Allah never asked you to ignore reality to prove your goodness. Think about how you feel after these interactions, not during them, but after. During the conversation, you may feel needed, useful, relevant, but afterward, do you feel fulfilled or drained? Do you feel connected or empty? Do you feel appreciated or quietly depleted? Your emotional state is information. Stop dismissing it. A person who truly cares about you will remember you beyond their needs. They will ask about your life without steering the conversation back to themselves. They will notice when you disappear, not just when they require something. They may not be perfect, they may not always show up, but there will be effort without agenda. The one who uses you, however, treats your availability like a switch, on when needed, off when satisfied. And over time, if you are not careful, you start shaping yourself around their demands. You stay reachable, you stay agreeable, you stay helpful. You silence your own exhaustion because you don't want to lose the connection. But ask yourself this question honestly. What connection are you afraid of losing? A relationship where you are only remembered when you are useful is not intimacy. It is dependency disguised as closeness. Some people don't want you, they want what you provide. And the moment you stop providing, they disappear. Not because you changed, but because their access did. This is where many people struggle spiritually. They say, but Islam teaches us to help people. Yes, it does. But Islam also teaches us justice even with ourselves. The Prophet, peace be upon him, warned against oppression. And oppression does not only come from enemies. Sometimes it comes quietly from those who benefit while you bleed silently. Helping someone occasionally is generosity. Being expected to help endlessly without care for your limits is exploitation. You are not sinful for noticing this. You are not selfish for acknowledging it. Awareness is not cruelty. It is clarity, and clarity is mercy. You are not a bank account. You are not an emotional dumping ground. You are not a solution machine. You are a human being with a heart, limits, and dignity. If someone remembers you only when they need you, Allah may be showing you something important, not to make you bitter, but to make you wiser. You don't need to confront them aggressively. You don't need to announce your realization. You don't need to cut people off dramatically. Sometimes the most powerful response is quiet adjustment. Reduce access. Slow your availability. Observe what remains when you stop overgiving. If the relationship collapses when you stop pouring, then it was never built on mutual care to begin with. And that realization, painful as it may be, is not a loss, it is protection, because the believer does not cling to relationships that drain the soul. The believer trusts that Allah replaces what is unhealthy with what is sincere. Stop measuring your worth by how useful you are to others. Your value does not come from being needed. It comes from being a servant of Allah who honors the trust of their own heart. This lesson is uncomfortable because it removes all doubt. Up until now, you may have been unsure. You may have said, maybe I'm overthinking, or maybe this is just how they are. But this sign leaves very little room for denial. Watch what happens the moment you say no. Not rudely, not harshly, not disrespectfully. Just a calm, reasonable no. You explain that you're tired, that you're busy, that you can't help this time, that you need space, that you need to protect your own time, energy, or resources. And suddenly the atmosphere changes. Their tone shifts. Their warmth cools. Their patience disappears. You feel it immediately. The conversation becomes short. The kindness becomes conditional. Sometimes it turns into guilt, sometimes into silence, sometimes into subtle punishment. This reaction is not about your no, it is about their entitlement. A person who values you respects your boundaries even when they are disappointed. A person who uses you sees your boundaries as betrayal. Islam does not teach us to say yes to everything. Even the Prophet, peace be upon him, said no. Even he had limits. Even he withdrew when needed. Boundaries are not a modern invention. They are a sign of wisdom. But the one who benefits from your constant yes feels threatened when you finally choose yourself. Notice how quickly appreciation turns into accusation. You've changed. You're being selfish. You're not the same anymore. These words are not observations. They are pressure tactics. They are designed to push you back into the role that made them comfortable. And here is where many good-hearted people fall into a trap. You start doubting yourself. You ask, am I being unfair? Am I lacking patience? Am I failing as a good Muslim? No. What you are experiencing is resistance. When you stop overgiving, those who were overtaking feel exposed. Think carefully. If your kindness was genuine before, why does it suddenly become a flaw when you say no? If your character was good yesterday, why is it questionable today? The truth is simple. Your value to them was never about who you are. It was about what you provide. As long as you are useful, you are welcomed. The moment you are unavailable, you become inconvenient. Islam teaches us that intentions matter. If someone's treatment of you changes based on your usefulness, their intention was never sincere connection, it was benefit, and this is where clarity must replace guilt. You are allowed to say no without explaining yourself endlessly. You are allowed to rest without apologizing. You are allowed to protect your time, your energy, and your peace. Saying no is not arrogance, it is honesty. And honesty often reveals people's true motives. Watch how they respond after your no. Do they understand and respect it, or do they withdraw affection until you feel uncomfortable enough to give in again? Some people don't argue, they punish quietly, they disappear, they become cold, they make you feel like you've done something wrong without ever saying it directly. This is emotional control. And control has no place in healthy relationships. A believer does not manipulate through guilt. A believer does not make kindness conditional. A believer does not weaponize silence to regain access. If someone only treats you well when you comply, then the relationship is built on obedience, not respect. And obedience belongs to Allah alone. Here is a hard truth that many people avoid. Your no is a filter. It removes those who were only there for what you gave, not who you are. When you always say yes, you never see who people truly are. When you say no, reality surfaces quickly. Some will stay, some will adjust, some will leave. And those who leave were never meant to have unlimited access to you. You don't need to chase them. You don't need to explain yourself repeatedly. You don't need to win their understanding. Your responsibility is not to remain convenient. Your responsibility is to remain upright. Islam values balance. Excess in giving that leads to self-neglect is not virtue. It is imbalance. Allah does not reward you for burning yourself out to maintain someone else's comfort. And here is the most important part. When your value drops in their eyes after you say no, that does not mean your value actually dropped. It means their vision was always distorted. They didn't see you as a person. They saw you as access. So let them react. Let them reveal themselves. Let them feel uncomfortable. Your peace is not negotiable. Because the moment you realize that respect should not depend on compliance, you stop begging for acceptance and start walking with dignity. And that shift, though it may cost you some people, will save your soul. This lesson is quieter than the others, but it cuts deeper because it reveals something uncomfortable. Not everyone who stays close to you wants to see you rise. At the beginning, they were comfortable with you. When you were uncertain, when you were struggling, when you leaned on them, when your confidence was low and your position was familiar, but as you begin to grow, something changes. You become more self-aware. You gain confidence. You improve your character, your discipline, your direction. Allah opens doors for you that were once closed. And instead of joy, you sense tension. Instead of encouragement, you feel distance. Instead of celebration, you get silence. Instead of I'm happy for you, you receive indifference, comparison, or subtle criticism. This is not accidental. A person who truly cares about you finds happiness in your growth, even if it reminds them of their own stagnation. A person who uses you, however, benefits from you staying where you were. Your growth threatens their advantage. When you were unsure, they could guide you. When you were dependent, they could influence you. When you doubted yourself, they could position themselves above you. But when you start standing taller, thinking clearer, setting boundaries, and relying more on Allah than on them, their role weakens. And that makes them uncomfortable. So they begin to minimize your progress. They don't acknowledge your achievements. They change the subject when you share good news. They make jokes that shrink your confidence. They remind you of your past mistakes as if to pull you backward. Not openly, not aggressively, subtly. This subtlety is what makes it confusing. You tell yourself, maybe they're just not expressive. You say, maybe they didn't mean it that way. You excuse what your heart already understands. But ask yourself honestly, would you react this way if the roles were reversed? When someone you care about improves, do you feel threatened or proud? Do you compete or celebrate? Do you feel smaller or inspired? Your answer matters. Islam teaches us that envy is a disease of the heart. It doesn't always show itself as hatred. Sometimes it shows itself as silence where support should be. A person who uses you does not want you weak, but they also do not want you strong. They want you capable enough to help them, but limited enough to stay beneath them. This is a dangerous place to be. Because over time you start dimming yourself without realizing it. You stop sharing good news. You downplay your success. You hesitate before stepping into your potential. Not because Allah closed the door, but because someone close to you makes you feel uncomfortable walking through it. That is not humility. That is conditioning. True humility is lowering yourself before Allah, not shrinking yourself to preserve someone else's comfort. Pay attention to how they react when Allah blesses you. Do they make space for your joy? Do they support your growth even when it doesn't benefit them? Do they pray for your success sincerely? Or do they become distant, passive, or quietly dismissive? Some people don't want you to fail, but they also don't want you to surpass the version of you that served them best. And this is where clarity is required. You are not obligated to stay small to keep others comfortable. You are not required to apologize for the blessings Allah gives you. You are not wrong for outgrowing spaces that once felt familiar. Growth is not betrayal. When Allah elevates you, He is not asking you to look back for permission. He is asking you to move forward with gratitude and responsibility. If someone cannot celebrate your growth, it does not make them evil. But it does mean you must be careful with access. Not everyone deserves front row seats to your becoming. You don't need to confront them. You don't need to announce your awareness. You don't need to cut them off harshly. You simply need to stop shrinking. Continue growing quietly. Let Allah shape you. Let your character strengthen. Let your reliance shift fully to Him. Those who are sincere will adjust. Those who were benefiting will struggle, and those reactions will tell you everything you need to know. Because a person who truly values you wants you to rise, even if it means they must rise too. Anyone who prefers you smaller than you are is not invested in your well-being. They are invested in their comfort. And Islam does not ask you to sacrifice your growth for someone else's insecurity. Your growth is a trust from Allah. Honor it. This lesson exposes imbalance so clearly that once you see it, you cannot unsee it. Ask your